Hello, good morning, and welcome back to the channel. It's always beautiful to have you here. Today we'll continue in our discuss. Today we're going to discuss about oxidase test, which is one of the tests that we use for in our biochemical battery of tests. Remember, we're discussing biochemical identification of microorganisms. So the oxidase test. Now, like I said before, many of the biochemical tests, not all of them, are actually testing for the presence of particular enzymes within the bacteria. So if those enzymes are present, then you get a positive test. But if the enzymes are absent, you get a negative test. Now, in the case of oxidase test, we are testing for the presence of an enzyme. The enzyme is called oxidase C, cytochrome C oxidase. Sorry, cytochrome C oxidase is the name of the enzyme that we test for when we do the oxidase test. And this is important. Now, it's important to note that a lot of organisms use oxygen for their respiration. And in the process of, there's what you call an electron transport chain. And in the process of using this oxygen for their respiration, they have to make use of some of them, not all of them, have to make use of this enzyme, this cytochrome C oxidase. Now, when you do the oxidase test, you're testing for the presence of this oxidase enzyme, whether the organism has it or it does not have it. Now, it's a simple test, and usually there's a reagent which we call the oxidase reagent. Now, this oxidase reagent is actually tetramethyl p phenyl diamine dihydrochloride. That's a mouthful. Tetramethyl p phenyl diamine dihydrochloride is the name of the reagent that we call the oxidase reagent, and that's what we use to run the oxidase test. And it's quite a simple test because this reagent usually comes either as a colorless liquid or a pale pink liquid, very pale and pink. And then usually we run this test on a filter paper. You have a filter paper, and then you put drops of this reagent, your oxidase reagent. You put drops on it on the filter paper, and then you take your bacteria and inoculate drops of that bacteria onto that filter paper that you have stained with your oxidase reagent. And it's a simple reaction. If you have a change in color from that pale pink or colorless liquid, and you now begin to see it as purple or blue, you see the organism or the liquid, sorry, turning purple or blue. If you see that happening on your white filter paper, that's an oxidase positive result. So that tells you that that organism is carrying the enzyme oxidase. So this is important. Well, a particular kind of oxidase, so cytochrome C oxidase. Now, it's important to make this distinction because there are many different types of oxidases. So this particular oxidase test that we usually run in microbiology is for cytochrome C oxidase. This is important to note. Now, students sometimes ask that, so a positive oxidase test, does it automatically mean that that organism is aerobic? No, it doesn't automatically mean. But what happens is that most of the organisms that are oxidase positive are expected that, especially when you do this oxidase C, cytochrome C oxidase test, most of the organisms that test positive to it are believed to be aerobic in nature. But of course, why we make this distinction is that there are some anaerobic organisms that might also test positive to this cytochrome C oxidase, but they may not be using it really for their respiratory pathway. So these are important distinctions to make, that we understand what these distinctions are and what the differences are. And this is important to note the color change. And we know that when you have an oxidase positive bacteria, you have examples like your Pseudomonas, your Neisseria gonorrhea, your Aeromonas are all examples of oxidase positive organisms, and the negative ones are your Escherichia coli and your Salmonella, Shigella, and Klebsiella. They are all oxidase negative organisms. So this is important to note, and it's a very simple test that we do in the laboratory. Oxidase test to test for the presence of cytochrome C oxidase, which is an enzyme that some bacteria carry. Thank you for listening to this, and do have a wonderful day.